there. Uh, all right. So it's an absolute pleasure to give these talks. I love doing these because, well, for multiple reasons. The first one is I've lived through so many of these pain points myself that if I can share with you any of the stupid, frustrating mistakes that I've made, that our team's made, and save you the friggin' time and hassle, I am more than happy to do that. And what's really cool is that I get to use literally our own, like what we've done to make it real. Uh, I've spent some time as a professor of physics. It's very easy to stand up at the front of a class and just lecture equations and things like that. But in order to actually connect the dots and make something accessible, it so helps to be able to contextualize into an actual real applied use case that people can wrap their minds around. And so on that second note, unlike lecturing at the front of a classroom, I want to be interrupted tonight. I want everyone to say, whoa, whoa, pause, wait, unmute yourself, just say, wait, can you repeat something, or can you go back there? Or what would you think of this? Totally happy to stray off the presentation here and go where you folks want to go, because this topic is so vast. Go-to-market is the second hardest role or activity or focus area that you would have to do as a startup. Right now, I'm guessing most people on the call here are involved one way or another in building cool tech. Most people probably have computer engineering science backgrounds or are supporting a team, from a sales and marketing perspective or what have you. But at the end of the day, everyone here is probably focused on building something really cool. And that's friggin' hella important. But it is also the most dangerous and misleading mindset to have from the get-go. And I'm going to touch on that. Anyway, I'm going to stop with the informal, and I'm going to go more a little formal. So to be formal, we got this little PowerPoint that I'm going to set up. Hopefully everyone can see that. Can I get a woo woo if you see what I see? All right. Okay, so developing a go-to-market strategy. I'm going to talk a little bit about a lot about our own and why we think it fits on ours, but then how to generalize from there for all of the stuff that you folks are building and doing. Okay, so look at this slide. Can anyone tell me what's sort of, maybe right or wrong about this slide? This is the start of almost every pitch deck to every company, including our own. Look at that fantastic number in green, $4.1 trillion. The size of the market is huge. There's a lot of gold out there. We just got to go scoop it up and so on and so forth. So every company will sell themselves as having invented the greatest thing since sliced bread. And they'll say, look at the size of the market. And they're going to say, we're going to go after that. And, too big to fail, too good to fail, so on and so forth. You know what connects these big lofty goals and the good idea you had? It is precisely the go-to-market. So if I just put this one slide up and I don't explain how I'm actually going to go from this cool idea I have and justify, why it could work, to actually unlocking some of the potential market share, then you do not have you will be passed over by investors. They don't care. If you can't, one half is saying, look at this cool product and the fit with the market. And the other half is, okay, execution. How am I going to go from, okay, I have a product and people want it, to actually capturing value? I mean, that is as big, if not bigger or harder than developing the product itself. So writing code is just step one. Okay, so going on. Okay, how does one go to market? Disregard the edge computing stuff there. There is everything from ideation to prototyping to scaling to communicating to optimizing and dozens of other things that you have to keep on in the back of your mind when you're actually building a company. But even if you develop a perfect go-to-market strategy, your venture might fail. Even if you have a perfect product, you might fail. How's that possible? Does anyone remember the Betamax versus VHS battle? Does anyone know what VHS means? Yeah. So anyone who's ever used the VCR, which there might be few people. Anyway, you might remember your parents having one somewhere collecting dust. Betamax was way the hell superior technology, but VHS won. VHS won the battle. How can an inferior product win? right? It's because their go-to-market strategy was better, right? In terms of how aggressive they were with their communication, how they communicated with their audiences and everything else. And I'm going to get into some of the things that can devastate a company with a great product and they fail to go to market, and therefore they fail, and their investors lose all their money, and then your reputation is ruined, and so on and so forth. Okay, so you don't want this to happen to you. You're building something cool, and you don't want to essentially piss away an awesome opportunity. So before you work on a product market fit or on a go-to-market strategy, you must absolutely ensure you have product market fit. And I cannot repeat enough how everyone doesn't know what product market fit means. Everyone here thinks they know what product market fits. You'll probably think, oh, it just means the market wants my product. I guarantee you, product market fit is way, way more than that. And in fact, product market fit deserves its own workshop all in of itself, which I'm happy to talk more about at some point. But as a stopgap, I've included here this link, which is the most effective video on product market fit I've ever come across. It's 58 minutes of drilled into your head exactly what you need to know on product market fit. So I'm going to put that in the chat right now, and you can I absolutely highly recommend that you watch this some other time, because it'll tell you everything you need to know about product market fit, or at least give you a good starting point. But assuming that you know everything there is to know about how to achieve product market fit, and that you have achieved product market fit with your perfect solution, you still need to go to market, which is just as hard as everything else. So let's talk about that. Okay, so if you've achieved product market fit, now what? Well, as our mentors have forcefully impressed upon us, your go-to-market doesn't stop. The clarity of your go-to-market strategy does not stop until you're able to name which ladders you're going to prop up against which trees, right? So that's a bit of an analogy, saying, oh yeah, we're going to grow apples, and we're going to pick them and sell them, and so on and so forth. And if the unit price of 10 cents per apple, and so on and so forth. No, you have to know exactly which ladders you're going to put against which trees, in what order, on what timeline. That's go-to-market. So how we did our go-to-market, and I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing to make this a little bit more real. First, we have our solution that we know there's a demand for. And how do we know there's a demand for it? Well, we've interviewed a lot of potential customers and actively listened to what the problems are, and built a solution that solves their problem. What we did not do is build a solution and then go search for a problem that it solved. Okay, so I want to make that distinction very clear. People who build something really cool, good for you, because it's creative, it's awesome. But if you build it first and look for people with the problem that it fixes after, you're in a world of hurt. You probably have employees already. You have a burn rate, and now you're scrambling to find product market fit, instead of going the other way around, which is make sure you listen to a lot of people talk first, find out what the problem is, then set out to build a solution with the assurance that there's a plan and a market for what you're building. Okay, so you need to write down what an ideal customer profile, what your hypothesis for an ideal customer is. You won't know exactly what that is until you've sold it to many of that ideal customer. So I'll give you an example. We at King's Distributed Systems have developed a data-driven application that ingests hospital, surgical, OR performance data and spits out the most optimum surgical schedules possible, better than any human can. And that's because scheduling right now is a tediously manual process that takes weeks and weeks and weeks, and lost Word docs and emails and so on and so forth. We have an application that automatically, at one click of a button, generates the most efficient surgical OR schedule possible, which can generate a return of over $3 million a year per hospital worth of increased throughput. Wow, okay, so Okay, great. Doesn't that sound like really cool tech and a really cool solution to a really cool problem? That's fine. But now I need to take that solution. I have it in my hands and I'm looking around and saying, okay, I got to sell this to hospitals. But which hospitals? Like, who do I call within the hospital? Right? So finding an ideal customer profile, is it all hospitals? Is it just in Ontario? Or how about the United States? Or how about in Europe? Data privacy laws obviously have an effect on what the ideal customer might look like. What if they don't collect data? What if they're all paper-based? How about small hospitals? If they're too small, maybe they don't need sophisticated predictive analytics to schedule surgeries for them, because essentially they have two operating rooms and they can just hand pencil whip it. Well, these are all the hypotheses that you might have from the get-go. Maybe big, gigantic hospitals are already super efficient, right? Because they have the resources internally to do this kind of stuff. So what we did, and I'll just escape from my thing here, take a look at this. Here's essentially a one-pager where we wrote down, almost in narrative form, what our hypothesis for an ideal customer hospital. Notice we literally put it down. We have numbers. If there are no numbers, it's not real. So if you're not writing numbers down in your analysis, you're just shoving clouds around. So we explained to great details, what we think makes for an ideal customer or profile. So you need to do this when you're building your essentially your profile for your customer, for your problem, for the solution that's solving the problem that you're putting forward. Okay, great. So I have my hypothesis. What next? You want to validate and or invalidate that customer profile. And you do that by essentially hitting the pavement, knocking on doors, and pitching your solution. And by the way, this ideal customer profile hypothesis, that's just sorting out which are the ideal hospitals for us. But you also have to know, well, who am I calling when I pick up the phone? Right? Hospitals are huge. They're called the CEO, the CFO, the director of surgery, the people doing the scheduling. I mean, if we're generating extra $3 million a year for the hospital, you better bet the CFO would be interested in that. But if you're increasing patient care and you're decreasing backlog, the executive branch is really interested because their hospital gets to look good. But if you're removing all the pain of scheduling, then the director of surgery and the managers of the perioperative services, this is what they want to use. So you need to know exactly the name of the positions and roles that you're going to call when you pick up that phone, right? And you also have to be able to speak to them in a way that they understand your solution. Do you think me calling and this is based on real stories here, calling someone who's in the hospital surgical or admin assistant or scheduler, calling them and talking to them about sophisticated edge computing, predictive analytics, and AI-driven algorithms that can minimize, create local minimums within blah, 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 like that, you lose them immediately. So crafting your messaging and communicating is to the appropriate audience is absolutely key. So you validate and you invalidate your customer profile by selling and by pitching and literally selling your solution. So, okay, so we've done that. Now back to the story stuff. So we've done it a couple of times, and we had a hypothesis that small hospitals with a few operating rooms would not really need an automatic scheduling capability. But guess what? We talked to them anyway. We still talk to those small hospitals, and we confirmed that they do not need scheduling assistance at the block level, which is just a technical language for something within I think, but that they would absolutely love to be able to schedule diagnostics imaging visits. Well, holy crap. So even if you've ruled people out in your hypothesis, talk to them anyway, right? And complete that picture and go back to your hypothesis and your ideal customer profile and add in a whole bunch of information. I'm going to show you what that actually looks like in a second. And then, of course, talk to the ones who you think are your ideal customers, but some of them might surprise you and say, no, they're not interested. Record why, and then go back to your customer profile and continuously fill out what is that ideal shape and color of a customer that really wants, that has the problem you think they have and really wants the solution you've built. Because let me tell you, if you don't solve a problem, nobody's going to want your solution, no matter how cool it is, right? And you will fail. Okay, so once you've validated and invalidated, your hypothesis, you want to essentially get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 early adopter customers. And I'm talking about, let me just make this also a little bit more approachable. You're all probably thinking, this guy's an asshole. He's expecting that we'll have a product that's ready off the shelf and we'll be able to turn around and sell it. Believe me, those are my comments to our mentors when they're saying, you got to sell your product. I'm thinking, it's not even built yet. It's not finished yet. I mean, it's only been 3 weeks since we've started. And they drilled into my head that you can still and definitely should still sell your product. Sell your product in order to have all of those conversations. We've spoken to 74 hospitals now. 74 hospitals, collected all that information about what really solves the problems. You need to do that. And guess what? You can't build a perfect solution and then have conversations with 74 hospitals just to discover that you are wrong about your hypothesis about the problem you're solving or about what they want to see done or what have you. So it's really imperative that you start your go-to-market by talking to all these people, because believe me, their input will totally redirect the development of your solution, because at the end of the day, that's what you're doing. You're solving someone else's problem, not your own. Okay, so how do you get those first 6 or 7 customers when you don't have a product yet? Well, what we did is we sweetened the deal, and we were very deliberate about saying that this is a proof of concept project. So we're calling this Osler, the AI schedule generator. And we said, if you participate as an early adopter, you'll help co-develop the product. You'll get 20 weeks of customization so that we include in this product exactly all of the features that meet your specific hospital's needs. And it's $20,000 a year instead of $50,000 a year when this product will be complete. And what we discovered by sweetening the deal like that, a lot of hospitals were very excited about doing some research and co-developing and being involved in the crafting of the solution. At least in our case, they were, because, and this is an accidental discovery, you'd think that pitching a solution completely off the shelf would be the least amount of risk, especially for institutions like hospitals. Therefore, of course, they want to see proven track record and results and 10 years of existence before they can trust your fully baked product. But you mitigate all of that if you're upfront. You say, actually, this is experimental. It's bleeding edge, and it's bringing about smart logistics and supply chains from other fields finally into hospitals to make smart hospitals. And so a lot of hospitals right now want to dip their toe in this new realm of AI and data-driven approaches to optimization and so on and so forth. So again, this is specific to our audience and our problem solution and with respect to the greater market, but maybe you can exploit those angles with your products, and maybe you can. But sometimes making the customer, the early adopter, I should say, feel as if they're a part of the journey is an effective way to get them on board. And for us, it's worked quite well. Okay, so to summarize, we created a profile, we validated it / invalidated, and we constantly revisited and populated our spreadsheets with information about what worked, what didn't, and what people were really looking for. And then when we essentially honed in on that pitch, we looked to get no more than 6 early adopters, and we sweetened the deal, and we refined a pitch around having them be part of that development process. And that's so important, because finally, these early adopters become your champions. They are the ones who are going to write the testimonials on the one-pagers that you're then going to circulate once you have a developed product and selling it full price. And they're the ones who are going to put a name and a face and a picture saying, wow, we implemented their automatic surgery scheduling application and it increased throughput by 15%. We can't imagine a day, before we had this, and blah, 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 blah. It's made it so much easier for us, and so on and so forth. So the go-to-market is all of these steps. And it's only over. Well, it's never over, but the hard part is over once you've turned all this into a repeatable process. Again, let me leave my screen here and go into something else I want to show you. So customer profile, almost written like a narrative. If you've never seen a funnel before, check this out. This is literally just Excel. Everyone has Excel. There are all kinds of sales software tools that you can use that will charge you monthly fees and all this crap. But you know what? You can't beat, at least initially, Excel straight up, because it's free and you can develop all your sales around this. So we literally have the hospital name, the location, the contact, like who on my team is doing the follow-up, status, and more details. But check it out, right down to the name of the person and even links to their LinkedIn profiles. Literally the names of the people that we're speaking with and who they are. Is there are 4 buyers, right? There's the technical buyer, there's the executive buyer, there's the financial buyer, and then there's the naysayer, if you will, the anti-buyer. So we went and identified the roles and the names of each of these people at each of these hospitals, and we got in touch with them with their contact information and everything else. And we even kept notes about what they said, details from those discussions. And then we sort those leads, by how hot are they in the funnel and cold and so on and so forth, and Canadian health authorities or scheduling, all these details. And you're probably thinking, oh, this is a lot of overhead, right? But this is what I mean by you want to know which ladders you're putting against which trees. And when you have that, that's when you have a go-to-market strategy. And the more you do it, and the more you confirm your hypothesis and validate that your solution does solve the problem, or better yet, you can tweak your solution so that it really addresses the problem that you're hearing from all these hospitals, then you've nailed it. Okay, let's go back. So let me pause there before A, I run out of oxygen, but B, does this make sense in terms of going to market, like really painfully laying out, go to market is, oh, we're going to call a bunch of hospitals. No. Who, right down to the name, what's their email, and what's the record of your conversation with them? Is this a repeatable process? How long did it take between the first contact, the follow-up contact, the technical deep dive, maybe even a trial? And like you're going to be speaking to the same person at least 6 times with lots of follow-ups. How long did that take? How tight is that cycle, right? What's the percentage of conversions from, okay, we talked to them, to they went to stage 2, stage 3, and then eventually bought? I can tell you the percentages of the size of the funnel each step along the way for this product, and we only started 8 weeks ago. So this is part of that process. Okay, moving on. Here's an example of our complex go-to-market strategy. So I didn't share this yet. We are selling this specific application to hospitals. But underneath this solution is DCP. Some of you might have heard of this. It's the Distributed Compute Protocol. It essentially unlocks computing power within the hospitals to power the predictive analytics, but it can also be used to unlock computing power in smart manufacturers to do predictive analytics there, to do COVID-19 analytics for Government Canada, and it can certainly be useful if we deploy this in universities. So how many universities or how many computers at your university can you think of that are idle right now? Imagine if you could turn them all into a distributed supercomputer to power your AI projects and your predictive analytics. That's actually what our main product does. So we're deploying this product, the Distributed Compute Protocol, in hospitals to power analytics there, but we're also deploying it in 50 other verticals to do stuff there. So that's a really complicated go-to-market strategy. So we've been deploying this initially, our early days, because we've pivoted. Our early days, or at least we've complemented our approach. We were giving this away for free, and still are, to academic institutions worldwide. That was our go-to-market. Take this product of ours, DCP, give it away for free to academic institutions worldwide, do hackathons and do events to gather feedback from people trying to use this. Does it suck? Is it easy to use? How long does it take to get things working? Is the documentation good? How many people used it? How many people put their hands up and said they'd try it, and then how many actually followed through and did it? Is it because we were offering cash prizes, or is it because it's a generally cool tool and it's useful? Like all that discovery and information to confirm product market fit is what we did through our call it our academic go-to-market. And finally, we've sort of taken all those lessons learned in a relatively safe test environment in universities, and now we're applying it in hospitals. Because think of this: what happens if we accidentally delete every hard drive in a hospital? And I mean, that's pretty extreme, right? We're screwed. We're done. Our go-to-market, we're over. Our company essentially files for bankruptcy. We fold the tent and we go home. So our go-to-market through these hospitals involved a pre-go-to-market A/B testing, if you want to call it that, with universities, hackathons, coding workshops, and so on and so forth. Much like the set hacks one that we've been doing now a couple of times, which we're enjoying. Okay, so there we go. We've evolved our go-to-market strategy. We've refined our notion of who the customer is. We don't even have a complete product yet, and yet we've already sold it to 4 hospitals, right? Because they have a big enough problem, and our solution looks promising enough that they want to jump on board, right? So okay, we've got that, and then we have the rationale. This is where you deploy your go-to-market strategy. We make all those phone calls, cold calling, cold emailing. I mean, one of the coolest experiences I had with our team as we were trying this for the first time, goosebumps, a little nervous, everything else. Literally call the hospital, the switchboard, and while the robot voice is speaking, asking who would you like to be connected with, I was live looking at the org chart of that hospital, looking for the name of the person corresponding with the role who I thought would be the most ideal. Meanwhile, the rest of our sales and our little business team, there's like 3 of us, we're like all watching, like, ooh, is this person, am I going to get shut down? I was like, this is crazy. This is just like those, those are the early days in a high school or a dance where, there's separation of the groups and you're like, who's going to go and get shot down and ask the other to dance first and so on. Same thing, same feeling. And sure enough, I said, org chart, okay, we're going to talk to Vanessa, for example. And then I say, okay, Vanessa Harmon. And then the robot answering machine sends me over to a machine. And of course, it's an answering machine. I'm like, I just left a voicemail. Well, guess what? She called back an hour later. And we had like a good 45-minute conversation, explain what we're doing, going a bit more detail. And there's great interest. I had her on speakerphone so the rest of the team could hear. And everyone was like, nope. No way. And it was the most exciting. It was our first cold call, and it was our most exciting moment because we were literally hitting the pavement. This is literally what you have to do too. Cold call, cold email, verify your hypothesis. Does someone actually want what you have? Because no matter how cool you think it is, nobody thinks it's cool until they tell you they want it. Okay. And that's just the starting point. Refine your concepts on who want to buy it. So once you know that you can get 6 champions, right? How badly do they want your product? And then from there, you can do things like this. Okay, so we sold this to 6 hospitals because the return on investment is valuable to them. The ROI is great. It's the value add here. We have competitive advantages, and we can do these 5 things that these other competitive products can't do, and blah 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 blah. Once you know for sure that there's product market fit and that you have a good go-to-market strategy, only then can you start calculating. Okay, how much is this actually worth? So remember, at the start of this presentation, I showed you a big fancy slide that said $4.1 trillion economic impact of edge computing, right? That was horse crap. It was a distraction. Only once that I've done all this work that we've done now together, explaining and setting up how we're going to sell this thing and develop this go-to-market strategy, now we can start to work for, okay, we have the solution that hospitals seem to want. And my customer profile says that only about 1/3 of the hospitals are actually addressable because the others are either too small or too big, or don't do surgeries, they do other things, or so on and so forth. So 1/3 of the hospitals are actually addressable by this. Then I combine that with maybe some statistics. Okay, what percentage of the people we've phoned said they're actually interested? And I can say, well, out of the 74 we've talked to, all of them said that yes, this is something they need or want. The ones who said no, it's because either they already had a solution similar or working on it internally, or they were too small and didn't need it, but they all said, but this is something that would be important. Okay, great. So then you say, how many hospitals are there in Ontario? Okay, there's about 1,000 that are addressable to us. And so what percentage could we capture? Maybe 1/3, right? If this is as good as we think it is, if it's, hey, they give us 50,000, we give them extra $3 million worth of surgeries, that it would be negligent not to adopt the solution. Okay, and then in Canada, there's how many more hospitals? And then in the States, it's about 10 times more. And then from that, you multiply, okay, so we reasonably expect to capture this many hospitals over this period of time, multiplied by the unit price of what you think it's going to cost. And how long is it going to take? How much is it going to cost you of your time to get that? And now you can do some sort of some napkin math and say, okay, in 36 months, I think I can capture 1,000 hospitals if the product delivers as it's supposed to be, but you should assume that you're going to build a solution that's going to do what you're saying it's going to do. If you're not, then why are you even doing this in the first place? So there we go. $50,000 a year times 1,000 hospitals in 36 months is what we think is addressable, which means $50 million of annual recurring revenue is what we think we can do within 36 months. That's how you build a go-to-market strategy with the economic impact, with laying down exactly which trees you're going to put which ladders first, with their names and exactly like literally everything. As you can see, there's a lot more complexity and more work here than building cool tech. Okay, and then once you've done that, then you can talk about the billions of dollars of blah 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 and adjacent to verticals, and all of that all combines to do like a $4.1 trillion market and so on and so forth. But I hope that provided maybe a little more personalized view of our journey through not just building cool tech, but how do you sell it, and all the work that's involved, is it's huge. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. It is 6:35, which is really close to when I wanted to end this, to now go to the fun part, which is Q&A. Ask me literally anything, or don't ask me anything. Tell me about your cool projects, and then maybe we can live go through an exercise to just think through the journey that you'd have to go through to sell what your idea is, even if it just exists on paper right now. So the floor is now yours. Albert, you've unmuted, so let's make you go first.
I'd like a hawk. So I was just, as you were talking about this, I was just curious, how many years did it take for this idea to develop? Where did it start? And it seems that when you were ready to work on a go-to-market plan and all of this, you kind of already had an idea of what it would do and what it would be for. So walk me through that if you can.
Fantastic.
In a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I also see the questions in the chat, and I'll get to those, and hopefully maybe I'll touch on some of those. Okay, are you ready for this? Because it's a convoluted, complicated story, because all the good advice I shared tonight, I did not do. We started 4 years ago, 3 assholes and a tiny little bit of money. And we started building a distributed computing platform. So it's software that you could essentially install on 100 computers in an office or at a school or in a hospital, and it turns it into essentially an automatic computing cluster that you can throw work at, and it'll just automatically distribute and do things faster and so on and so forth. We knew it was important and cool and useful. I mean, after all, Google, AWS, and Microsoft are making trillions of dollars in aggregate over time by renting compute power out. I mean, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, right? That's what they're doing. They're building data centers, and they're renting out compute power and storage and software and so on and so forth. So clearly, there's a need for computing power, and we took that as instant product market fit. so that's what I mean earlier. I meant earlier by everyone here thinks they understand what product market fit is by saying, of course, there's a need for water and food and barbecues and compute power. So of course my solution is going. That's not product market fit. You're wrong. So the video that I posted in the chat, friggin' go watch that. Make that your assignment. Or just it's the most. I thought it was inspirational. Knocked me off my chair. Okay, so now that you've heard about like the good way to do things, I'll tell you about the bad way we did things. So again, we built cool tech, and it became a solution in search of a problem. I mean, the problem's obvious. I mean, it's people need accessible, easy to use, affordable computing power because AWS is so damn expensive. But who? Well, I noticed that the who was missing in that. I said what? I didn't say who. Who is the product, the go-to-market strategy? So if I say people, that doesn't help. I need to name the name of the person, literally the name of the person who needs this. If you can't name the name of the person that needs this, you got to go back to the drawing board. So, okay, so we were able to sort of dance around that for a long time because my background is a physicist. So I didn't really talk much about a company or about me because I wanted to get to the good stuff and not waste your time, sort of like grandstanding and talking about, my personal journey, because that's not important here. It's more sort of the lessons learned. But anyway, I cut my teeth in physics at Queen's University, did my PhD there, and needed a lot of computing power to run a lot of numerical integration and that kind of stuff. So I firsthand definitely knew the pain points of researchers that need compute power to do their research, which is a hell of a lot of researchers. So at least I could embody the customer and the pain points and sort of that fit from that angle. Hence our initial go-to-market strategy, which is through universities and academia and students, because that's me. So I sort of represented that sort of that go-to-market philosophy and everything else. Okay, so but still, we're building this great platform that can do all kinds of marvelous compute. But who wants to buy this and for how much? And not who in the abstract. I mean, literally frigging who. Like who emailed you and said, where can I purchase? How many units? Like how many CPU hours? Like I'm ready tomorrow and I needed to do my distributed rendering. Okay, that's a who. If you like Pixar students, and Pixar will never buy compute for us, but that's different. Anyway, so until you literally can nail the who, you don't have a go-to-market strategy. You might have cool tech, but you don't have a go-to-market strategy. Okay, so fast forward 4 years. So we've been working on this for 4 years. We've raised and spent $7 million US. We have 32 employees, and I swear to everyone here, we've only developed a robust go-to-market strategy in the last 2 months. How's that for? So we've spent 4 years burning $7 million, not knowing who we were going to sell this beautiful, cool tech to. That's scary. That's really scary. And it's scary for you, and it's scary for your investors. If you can show your investors, this is the product, and here's who we're selling it to, and this is how we're going to sell it to them, and here's how much we're going to make from it. You literally have everything you need. It has to be that crystal clear. So we spent 4 years, $7 million, 32 people whose jobs are on the line, by the way. Like if you fail to raise the next round because you failed to sell product, because you didn't have a go-to-market strategy, because you didn't have good product market fit, then you've let down people and you've ruined your reputation. You're never going to be able to raise money again. And that's kind of game over. So we've spent, so again, to recap, that was a nervous 4 years that we've that we essentially were building cool tech. We had a cool solution in search of a who with a problem and with cash that would then spend it and give it to us. And so I don't, okay. And then what happened 2 months ago is probably a better question or answer to your question, Albert. I'm finally getting to it. I'm very long-winded in these answers. We got help. We got help from high power mentors out of Invest Ottawa. It was free. So if you can present, and Waterloo definitely has these groups and everything else, right? So every city will have these services. And by the way, we're in Kingston, Ontario. We don't have that level of mentorship within Kingston because it's too small. But Ottawa is helping this region. So let's say you're in Belleville, Ontario, or Napanee, or someplace that doesn't have like world leading mentors. Don't worry, just call Ottawa and say you're in this region, or if in Waterloo, and so on and so forth. Anyway, there's people willing to help. If you show them a really good idea, a really good team, and that you need help developing a go-to-market strategy, if you identify your flaw or what you need, your gaps, they'll help you with it. So that's what they did with us. We were assigned not one but two mentors, and guess what? They kicked the crap out of me. They literally, like I was saying, look how awesome, like, don't you understand how cool my tech is? Like, I can do blockchain, I can do black hole physics, I can do like all this really cool, fancy stuff. And they're like, okay, that's great. That's kind of like Honda. You develop some really cool engine technology, but where are you going to deploy it first? Lawnmowers, cars, motorcycles, planes, boats. I mean, you might have the best engine in the world, but if you don't focus on the platform that you're going to put it in first to penetrate a market segment, then you're gonna fail chasing them all at the same time. And boy, are they right. So they really kicked me in the teeth and brought me back down to earth to realize, okay, great, I have this cool tech, but I really need to know which trees I was going to put which ladders against in what vertical and segment first. So nail the who. And so painfully, 1 hour, like 1 hour meetings every week for 8 weeks, they held our hands and showed us this. And now that I'm looking at it, when I showed you that spreadsheet, doesn't that look like we know what we're doing? I guarantee you it didn't exist 2 months ago. So I mean, even I'm willing to replicate this with anyone in this room if they have something they want to build this, or I can introduce you to the people that helped us, or of course you can search your own resources because anyway, mentors who know what they're doing, who've done it before, they're good, they know what they're doing, they can help. And so that's sort of how we've I don't want to say pivot because we haven't changed the product whatsoever. We just filled a gap, a glaring gap, which is who do you sell this to and how do you go about doing that? Okay, now Albert, does that sort of answer the questions? I hope I sort of.
Yeah. Oh, did I? Yeah. So if I were to put it in a short, pithy statement, don't be a high-tech hammer in search of a nail. Find your nail.
That's the same thing that our mentor said. They said, okay, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So some people hunt with shotguns, some people hunt with snipers. And when you have an emerging tech product platform or otherwise, you're going to fail if you're hunting with shotguns. The other thing I've heard is spray and pray. Spray your and pray for someone to return your calls.
Right.
No, you must be very cold, calculated, and methodical. Again, like I said, customer profile, validate by literally calling people, cold calling them and selling and recording the information. Why yes, why no, refine the hypothesis, go back and do that until it looks like you know what you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
And okay, so from Nigel, how did your priorities change after talking to hospitals and gathering requirements? Excellent questions. Inevitably, anybody with a solution to a problem that's not fully yet developed, as are we, like the Osler scheduling project I talked about, we're only about halfway there. It's not fully developed yet. I guarantee you, every conversation we have, we're getting new tidbits, right? So how are our priorities changing? Two things. One, we're collecting all of the information and we're aware of all of the potential features and requirements and everything else and problems and solutions, everything else. But the most important thing right after collecting that information is triaging it. Because if you run after satisfying every person's tiny, minute detail, you're also going to fail. So we've taken all the information from all the hospitals and we've tried to figure out what are the 4 or 5 most common ones, and then focusing on that. So triage and prioritize. A one fits many sort of a solution sub solutions to within your main solution. So how do our priorities change? We became better at qualifying customers. So like I said, our initial hypothesis was, okay, hospitals with less than 5 operating rooms would probably be able to schedule their own surgeries more or less efficiently because it's not chaotic enough to require, sophisticated AI analytics approaches to be able to do the scheduling for them, because human brain can do simple things. It can't do very complicated things. But nevertheless, when we spoke to these small hospitals, they actually shared more things that, no, if this could do this, we would want to do it. It was very difficult for us to hold back and not change our priorities to be able to address them. Because think about it, if we could address small hospital concerns, then every hospital across Ontario becomes addressable to us, and not just the Goldilocks zone. But again, we would be undoing all of the focus work that we have just done. The idea is to narrow your focus and not expand it. So how did our priorities change after talking to so many hospitals and gathering requirements and everything else? It opened our eyes that we could really drown if we weren't careful prioritizing and making sure that we satisfied the most common features first, and then delayed what we do later. So maybe to add one more layer to that, Nigel, what we did is we decided to create a phased approach to our solution. So if you know that you want the full solution to do a lot of things, but it's okay to clearly define phases of that solution or that product. Okay, so product one is just scheduling OR blocks at the hospital admin level, and it's only good for hospitals that have more than 5 ORs. And guess what? My 5 to 6 initial early adopter customers, I'm just going to focus on people that are going to be able to purchase phase one. And then after a little bit of success, once we have a repeatable thing, then we can start to incorporate all the more features and call it phase two, and then get people excited about that and whatnot. So maybe that's how our priorities changed, or maybe better yet, did not change. They could have changed, but that's the thing. You have to resist the temptation to try to spread yourself too thin. Now, the only reason our priorities didn't change was because we did our homework first in speaking to hospitals to confirm that we were solving a problem. And we did our customer profiling, and then we validated it. Had we not done anything, those things first, imagine you didn't do any of that, and you're just calling 74 hospitals, and you're probably like, yes, 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 let's do this, let's do that, let's do everything else. Because you didn't have that first few steps to know that you're actually after something first. So even if your customer, no matter what the activities I'm suggesting you do, which is the customer profiling and validation, you might think that's all kind of bullshit. But even just the act of doing that, even if you don't understand what you're doing, the act of doing that instills discipline and focus, which in of itself is almost more valuable than the outcomes themselves. Your hypothesis might be completely frigging sideways wrong. It might be completely frigging wrong, and that's okay. But the discipline and the focus that do just following those mechanical motions, doing them, then allows you to then refine it and then maintain that focus. So I'm infinitely grateful for our mentors who kicked us in the teeth, gave us a slice of humble pie, and said, listen, you might have a great engine here, but if you don't put it in one machine and focus on it and know what you're doing, you're going to squander this. Okay, I see Lavin, you showed your video, so welcome. Nice to see you. And
Hi.
love to hear about your ideas and about you and what you think, and ask any questions you want.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm a little nervous, to be honest, because I'm pretty young. I guess like in this crowd, I feel like I'm kind of out of depth here. So I'm going into first year university, and I have a product idea, sort of, because I did a hackathon project. I'm like, hey, this is a kind of a cool idea, and the judge seemed to like it. So maybe I could work on it more and make it something real. But I haven't done all that much research. Obviously, don't have like a team or investments or anything like that. But I thought maybe I could like let you know kind of what I'm thinking and see if you have any advice, or you could totally tear it to shreds.
Let's jump in.
Okay, cool. So like the idea I kind of came up with was because I own a dog, and I figure a lot of people did get dogs during COVID, but they don't really know what they're doing, because I certainly didn't. So I thought maybe I could like create some sort of suite of devices to make it just easier for owners to take care of a dog and like understand how their dog is doing and just like track that sort of stuff. So sort of like data as well. So I was thinking of making like taking the devices that you normally have, or like not devices, things you normally have as a dog owner, like your food bowl, maybe like a bell at the door, and then putting that into like some sort of IoT thing. So you could have like an app that tracks how much water your dog is drinking, how much food they're eating, when they need to go to the washroom, and like dinging your phone so you actually hear it because you got your earbuds in a meeting about a go-to-market strategy, different things like that. Yeah, so that's sort of the idea.
I like that. I find that interesting. Okay, so where do you go from here? So this is something that you would like to commercialize. This is more than just, oh, I'm gonna have fun learning how to do something by doing it. Like, this is actually something where like, okay, this has legs and I can commercialize this. Have you tried, pitching this to a sister, a cousin, a brother, a parent, or friends, saying, hey, how important is your pet? And do you worry sometimes when you're gone for a long time about what their well-being is? Have you sort of had conversations with people and seeing how cool they think this is?
So I've talked with like cousins who own pets, and I mean, they are my cousins, so I guess they'd want to be pretty supportive. But I asked one of them like, oh, would you like be interested in something that like kind of gives you more information about how your dog's doing, different things like that? And they're like, yeah, that sounds like really useful, just to have it all there on like one device or like one app. And then I also, when I was actually pitching the idea during the hackathon, one of the judges said that they took care of dogs. They're like, yeah, something like this sounds like it'd be pretty helpful as like somebody who takes care of the dogs. So I have seen like some interest, but most of the, like, it's usually from people I sort of know already. So that's why I feel like there might be some bias there.
Good. Oh, well, that's okay. I mean, step one is, hey, is this interesting? Step two now, would you be able to in PowerPoint or Microsoft Paint or whatever your drawing choice, could you draw a mock interface of what you think that it could look like? Take an hour or two or whatever, and then show it to people and say, do you like this? You know, what if this is an app that you can see on your phone and it sort of like estimates like dogs' hydration or hunger levels or all this stuff. Like if you could actually just make a cheap drawing of it, the UI, and show it to these people, see what they say. And then here's the hard part. How much would you pay for this if it existed?
Oh, like, sorry, I'm writing this down.
So we're going to wrap up within 2 minutes here, but I'd like to connect with you, separately if you want to keep exploring this, because this is okay. We could spend the next 3 hours talking about this. This is cool, but I want to leave you with one more analogy or expression. I was talking about ladders against trees. Let's talk about coffee cup meetings. Does anyone know what a coffee cup meeting is? That's where you went into the meeting and all you got out of it was a cup of coffee. So customers will always tell you how to improve your product. Go away and make you spend your own money to refine your solution. If they don't open their wallet and want to pay for what you have, you are bullshitting yourself. So make that mock-up, or what, like just draw it. It'll take you an afternoon. It'll be way cheaper for you to draw it than to actually implement a full backend and database and maybe cloud native this and that, whatever. So draw what it looks like and go show it to 10, 20, 50, 100 people and ask people, and don't forget to ask people, how much would you pay for this, right? And what's the angle? Like if people are at home quite a bit, maybe they have an eye on their dog and they know how they're doing, but maybe people who travel a lot, maybe it'd be useful for them to give them their own reassurance to feel less guilty that at least they're doing something to monitor the well-being of their pets. So you're not, in this case, the customers it's not the dog that's benefiting here. It's the pet owner.
That's the owner. Yeah.
Call themselves more responsible and sort of shed some guilt. Maybe you could interface with home security, like Ring, like internal movie cameras, and then do some detection of positions. Like if the tail is below the legs too often, or what percentage of the time is the leg down? What percentage are they sort of resting on their paws like this? Because apparently when a dog is like this, apparently they're bored. I don't know. That kind of stuff. But if you can draw a picture of it, get 50 people to say, no, we want that. We'd actually pay for that. And then even ask them, give them a survey. How many dollars a month would you pay to get this type of statistics? Like when I say this statistics, show them what they would be getting. And if they say, and make sure there's an option where it's like, I like this, but I don't think I'd pay for it. Because if people do that, then I don't know, maybe it's not a good idea worth pursuing. So you need to get people to pay this. All right, it's 6:57. Anyone here wants to touch base and do one-on-one deep dives for fun, just explore this. And I'm not the best person to do this. There are way better people. As you can see, I got mentorship because I didn't know what I was doing. And I was brand new, first time, entrepreneur and everything else. And I'm just trying to barely pass on what lessons we learned, but always happy to chat with folks and refer you. So Levan, I see your LinkedIn, so we will connect. If anyone else wants to connect on LinkedIn, I'm easy to find. Dan Desjardins, King's Distributed Systems or Distributed Compute Labs, because those are two companies that we're sort of running. Have an excellent week, an excellent event, and great speaking to all of you. Albert, good questions. Levan, great speaking, and let's connect.
Awesome, Dan. Thank you so much for the presentation, and thank you everyone for coming out. Hope to see you guys in the next workshop.
And watch that video. Bye, everyone.